First, a disclaimer. I know nothing about economics, nothing about business, nothing about finance. There's a reason why I decided to go into science, guys. I'm a nerd. I don't know anything about this business stuff, so everything you're about to hear in this video is just me speculating about what little I know about these things. Don't take it too seriously. Howdy everybody, Carla here, and today I just want to talk a little bit, rather a short video, but I just want to talk a little bit about mergers, namely many mergers that are coming soon to Hollywood after the big news last week, which was that the merger between AT&T and Time Warner has been approved by the United States government, or more accurately by the court system. The Department of Justice was trying to fight the merger on antitrust, issues or concerns, but finally a federal court last week said that the merger can go through without any conditions, which is kind of a big deal in the world we live in right now, especially given that Comcast and Disney are fighting over now control and the ability to merge with Fox. 21st Century Fox, and that's coming down the pipeline. So I think it's important to touch a little bit about on those mergers, and I know that not everybody cares about this kind of stuff, but I find it kind of interesting, so I just wanted to talk a little bit. It will be a short video. This week has been kind of busy with me with health stuff and family stuff, so I don't have much time to edit. I just want to talk a little bit about this so that we have something to upload on Friday. So yeah, what happened with Time Warner I find very interesting, because I guess from my gut I tend to think of mergers as not a great thing, because lots of mergers lead to monopolies. It leads to a lot of power being concentrated on just a few companies, which is never really good for the consumer. And because of that, mergers have to be tracked really carefully, and they have to be approved. Conditions have to be set by the government. And this AT&T Time Warner merger was kind of a big deal, because now that it has been approved, it does signal to many other companies out there who were thinking of buying other smaller companies that maybe the antitrust policies aren't as stringent as they used to be, and they will have an easier time with their mergers. So I think this is important. That said, I think in the case of AT&T and Time Warner, I wasn't as, I would guess, concerned with that one in particular, because there are different things that you can have in the case of mergers. You can have a vertical merger and you can have a horizontal merger. Vertical merger is the case of AT&T and Time Warner. It's where you merge upwards in the chain of distribution. So in the case of AT&T, they are very much distribution in the sense of streaming services, etc. But they did not have a movie production studio. They did not have a TV production studio. By merging with Time Warner, they get not only tons of TV channels like CNN and HBO and a ton of others, but they also get Warner Brothers Studios, which is, as you all know, the ones that produce several different movies, including the DC Extended Universe. So that's very important for them. But AT&T before that did not have any movie studios under their umbrella. Now that this merger is secure, they do. So they have not only the distribution for the movies and TV via streaming and via internet, etc., they also have the production arm. So in that sense, the AT&T Warner merger was vertical. But there can also be mergers that are horizontal, meaning that companies in the same type of activity buy each other. which is what's happening, for example, with Fox. They're looking for another studio to buy them because they don't think they can survive on their own anymore with the competition that they have. So basically, this is why Disney is now looking to buy Fox. Disney is a studio, Fox is a studio. So when they both merge, you end up with one studio that is just stupidly big. And for me personally, I think I'm a lot more lenient when it comes to mergers, when it's a vertical merger rather than a horizontal merger. Which is why the minute that it was stated that Disney was going to buy Fox, I started getting hives. Because what that means is that you are going to have one huge ass studio under Disney that will make one huge ass amount of movies, and it's going to be basically a monopoly. Disney's going to get all the money, and that is not good, particularly for companies that work with the studio system. For example, the people that work with the studio system, the crew, the directors, the DPs, the lighting people, etc. Because now they only have to deal with one studio. There's less studios around where you can take your ideas, for example, because Disney will have that much power over the industry. If Disney has a crew in a certain location and Fox had a crew in a certain location, when they merge, the crew in that location is going to be reduced to just one. You can't take both of them. So people are gonna lose their jobs. And I think that worries me a lot more than when it's a vertical agreement, because, for example, like I said, AT&T did not have a production arm before. Now they do, which means that everybody who worked for Time Warner essentially is going to work for AT&T now. It's not exactly the same. There are people who will lose their jobs because AT&T will probably try to streamline things and whatever. That always happens. There's always people who lose their jobs with mergers, but it will be less people. They won't just X entire arms of Warner Brothers production umbrella. So in that sense, I feel a little bit better knowing that AT&T was the one that bought Time Warner. I'm not happy about it or anything. It's still a merger. It's still a lot of power concentrated in just one straight line from the top to the bottom. But it does make me feel a little bit better that they are at least not going to eliminate entire sort of divisions from Time Warner. They're just going to assimilate them into AT&T's business. For example, this is what happened when when Comcast bought NBC and Universal, for example. The merger went through and everything stayed pretty much the same, except now the big boss wasn't NBC or Universal, it was Comcast. So that's kind of the thing you will see with AT&T and Time Warner, I hope. I am worried about what this merger will mean to future mergers such as the Disney Comcast Fox one. Personally, I find that merger very stress inducing for me, mainly because of what I've explained before with the Marvel properties, that I don't want them to go to Disney, etc. But also because people will lose their jobs, and that really bothers me. But most of all, what bothers me is that no matter who gets Fox, that company is going to have a ridiculous amount of the market share, and that is, you are basically moving toward a monopoly or a dipoly, basically, where 2 or 3 studios hold all the power and the smaller players just can't afford to play anymore. And that's really scary. For example, let me tell you this. In 2017, Disney had about 22% of the market share. That means that out of the entire box office in the United States, about 22% went to Disney. Meaning they made the most money. They actually made something like over $2.4 billion, which is insane. But that was the first in the ladder. After Disney came Time Warner, which had about 18% of the market share. And then after that, it was NBC Universal with about 15. Later it will be Fox with about 13%, Sony with about 10%, and the others are below 10%, of course. So what does that mean? It means that Disney is making the most money out of every studio out there ever. Meaning, if Disney actually acquires another one of those studios, that will only grow. That market share will only grow. For example, think of the 2018 numbers that we have until June 17th of this month, so like half the year. Disney right now, what with Black Panther, with Avengers Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp hasn't even come out, The Incredibles is already killing it. Like, Disney is a machine, and already just in half the year they already have about 36% of the market share. That's ridiculous. Like, Solo didn't even do that good, but they have that many movies and that many production arms under their umbrella that they are basically taking almost 40% of the market share right now at this moment. And that's not going to change because, again, Black Panther, Avengers, Incredibles, these are going to be the biggest movies of the year. We don't have any more Star Wars this year. So those are going to be the biggest movies of the year, no doubt about it. So Disney's gonna end up with like in the 30s with the market share percentage. Second is Fox, of course, which is coming in after Deadpool 2. They're doing pretty well. They have about 15% of the market share right now. Time Warner is the third. They have about 12%. And NBC Universal has about 9%. Everything else below those expectations, below 10%. So right now, Disney is really taking all the money. Imagine that Disney buys Fox. Disney, with a 36% market share, buys Fox with a 15% market share. That's 50% right there. Imagine that. Imagine that Disney basically owns half of the market of movies in the United States by itself. That's basically a monopoly. There's no way you can compete with that. It's ridiculous. Which is why it's one of the reasons why I hope that Disney does not buy Fox. Because Fox, regardless of where you put it, this year it's number 2, last year was number 4, but it's always above 10%. It's generally, it does above 10% in the market share. Meaning, Disney can, like this, increase their market share by a ton. And they're already killing it with just Disney and Lucasfilm and Marvel. They're already killing it. Like, they are already the biggest player and nobody can compete with them. Imagine how much worse it will be if they actually acquire Fox. Now, I'm rooting for Comcast in this thing because they're still saying that there's a possibility that Comcast will present an all-cash bid that Fox won't be able to refuse and blah blah blah. I'm rooting for Comcast. Comcast is not 100% the savior that I want it to be either, because Comcast already owns NBC Universal, meaning they already own Universal Studios. They have a production arm already. Meaning, what I was saying about horizontal mergers still happens with Comcast. It's not just Disney. Comcast, if they buy Fox, they will also have that issue where it's a horizontal merger and people end up losing their jobs, because you can't have a crew in LA for Universal and a crew in LA for Fox. If they merge, you only need one of those two crews, right? So Comcast is, in my opinion, it's better. It's not necessarily good. Mergers like this are always a big deal. But the thing is, if Disney buys Fox, Disney becomes basically an unstoppable force in movies, in market share. It will be like dealing with Disney and then everybody else. And it already feels like that. So them acquiring Fox can only make it worse. NBC Universal has less market share, meaning 2017 they had 15%, and right now for this year they only have about 9%. So if they buy Fox, which had a 13% in 2017, they will be around the 30% mark. They'll still be the biggest player, but they won't be as big as if it would be if Disney buys Fox. They would be able to compete with Disney, for example. This year, Fox has about 15% and NBC Universal has about 9%. So again, they'll end up something like 30-34, which is in direct competition with Disney. That means that you don't necessarily have a point where Disney is the main competitor and nobody else can compete. You have now an NBC Universal that can compete with Disney because they acquired Fox, and that, I think, it's slightly better in terms of creativity. It's still not good because you have one less studio that you can go down to and be like, here, I have this idea, and hope that they make your movie, right? But it's slightly less bad than it would be if Disney buys Fox. So for me, that's that. I imagine after the Time Warner AT&T merger went through, that everybody else in Hollywood who was looking to buy other companies or to sell their company is now going to say, well, we're good to go. The government's gonna let us do this. So it's very important to remember that monopolies are not good. Huge ass players are not good. So this makes me very nervous. But at least if it's a vertical merger, I don't feel as bad with this case in particular, with the AT&T Time Warner merger in particular. No matter who buys Fox, and it's looking like it'll be between Comcast and Disney, either one of those is a horizontal merger, and it's not the greatest. But one thing that I have to mention is that mergers can sometimes have conditions. When Comcast bought NBC Universal, they applied conditions in order to satisfy the antitrust laws, which means that they couldn't hike prices for things, for internet, for example. Comcast couldn't make NBC cheaper or make Universal movies cheaper for the people who have Comcast, who have their internet connection through Comcast, because that would break antitrust laws. They have to keep it the same for everybody, and that is one thing that is very important, because on top of everything that's going on with these mergers, also net neutrality was just killed. Thanks for that, Donald Trump. Anyway, net neutrality is super important, and it's one of the conditions that allows these internet giants like AT&T and Comcast and Verizon and those kinds of people, it allows them, it forces them to basically keep their prices the exact same regardless of whether they own the companies they're allowing traffic to or not. For example, they cannot block a Netflix, they cannot, or even slow down a Netflix, they cannot block an Amazon. They can't just be, for example, Comcast can't be like, oh, okay, you will get NBC channels for free and you have to pay for the others. They can't do that with net neutrality, and that is why net neutrality is super important. And it's already died because of the Trump administration, and I don't even understand what their point was with it. But the Trump administration killed net neutrality. Now there are several states individually that are fighting that decision and trying to instate laws in their own states that will uphold net neutrality, so that is important. But the fact that the federal government killed it gives these companies like AT&T and Comcast and Verizon a leg up on telling the states that they cannot comply with their laws because there's a federal precedent, and that is very dangerous. So I do hope that whichever merger goes through, if it's Comcast or Disney, that they are able to set in conditions so that the prices won't be jacked up for everybody who uses their services, especially in the case of Comcast, because I know that for NBC and Universal, they had to apply some conditions, and that is very important. The Time Warner AT&T merger did not have any conditions because it was a judge who approved it. It just went through, and the judge did not stop to put any conditions on them, and that's very dangerous. So I do hope if Comcast gets Fox that they set a series of conditions that allow for a more just pricing and treatment of their of the people who, you know, watch movies through Fox or Universal or watch TV through NBC, so that prices aren't jacked up just because Comcast owns them now. If it's Disney, I have a huge ass problem with Disney buying Fox, not just because of the X-Men thing, although of course that is a precedent, but for me, it's just the idea that Disney might be able to get over 50% of market share. It terrifies me. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be one company that you have to fight against, and all these little ones are just barely above water. It shouldn't be like that, and that's why I hope that Disney doesn't buy Fox, but NBC, Universal, and Comcast wouldn't be much better either. So I don't know. I'm gonna leave you with those thoughts. Tell me what you think about all of this. Tell me what you think about net neutrality being cut down, because I have a lot of people asking me sometimes why I'm so invested in net neutrality. I don't even live in the United States. Here's the thing. If net neutrality is gone, and these internet giants suddenly decide to jack up the prices of Netflix, of Hulu, of Amazon, that affects me, because I use Netflix and I pay exactly the same for Netflix as you do in the United States. So that affects me, and that affects my speeds. If Netflix suddenly decides that they can't afford, because they have to jack up the prices, but they can't because people won't pay them, and then they decide, okay, so we're gonna cut down the budget for new developments, for example, or for new or for our original series, and suddenly they start canceling stuff because they can't afford it anymore. That affects me. I don't want to lose my favorite shows. I don't want to have to pay more for Netflix. So keep that in mind. You're not only affecting the United States, they're affecting the entire world, and these mergers do too. And that is why it's so important that people understand what's going on. And I know I'm not the best at explaining things. Like I said earlier, I don't know anything about business. This is just what I've been able to gather from the internet. But my feelings in my gut is that these mergers aren't great. Some are better than others. Some I'm okay with, some I'm not. But the idea that so much power can be concentrated on just a few companies is never a good thing. And I know that you're gonna say that I sound political. I'm sorry, but it's just how I feel, and it will affect me. It will affect my entertainment, so I had to mention this somehow. We'll see where it goes. If the Disney, Fox, Comcast thing goes anywhere, I'll make sure to come by and do another video on it when it finalizes. But in the meantime, I'm just kind of terrified, you guys. This is not a good thing. It's not a good thing, and it sucks because Fox is one of the big studios, and you'd be losing one of the biggest studios to that. And not only that, I mean, I know for a fact that Lionsgate was also looking to sell, and that's just, it's gonna be one huge ass problem with these mergers. Now that this one has been approved, I'm sure all the companies that were looking to sell are going to start selling. All the companies that are looking to buy are going to look to start buying, and it's just going to be a mess. And I just don't want us to lose outlets for creativity. I don't want people to lose their jobs. I don't want things to become more expensive, and it's just really, really tense right now with these mergers going through. And I would hope that the government would do something about it, but it's not my government, so I don't really have any input on it. So what can I do? I can just vent about it here, so that's what I'm doing. Anyway, that's about everything I had to say about mergers. It was really more like a therapy session from all my fears about it. But I hope you guys like it. Do let me know what you think. In the meantime, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you like my stuff, please subscribe to my channel. I'm always happy to see people liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. It really does help me a lot with those pesky YouTube algorithms. Speaking of YouTube, I'm sure they'll be looking to buy some studios soon. Anyway, in the meantime, you can find me on social media. I am on Twitter and Instagram at girlsareweird with underscores between the words. and I am on Tumblr at Girls So Weird with hyphens between the words. You can find a Facebook page for this vlog at facebook.com/FreakingNarnia, and as usual, you can find my main webpage at FreakingNarnia.com. All my videos are up there in case you missed any and want to catch up. Just go in there, it'll be there so you can watch it. Also, please remember that I have a Redbubble store where I make art based on my favorite quotes from my favorite fandoms, and then you can use that art to print on different types of merchandise such as t-shirts, coffee cups, computer covers, anything like that. It's all in there, so be sure to check it out. It's up again, thankfully. Redbubble finally reinstated my account because they're stupid. Anyway, it's all in there. Be sure to check it out and maybe purchase something if you're in the mood. It really does help me a lot. Also, remember that I have this vlog also in podcast form. Just search for Talks from Freaking Narnia in all your favorite platforms. And also remember, if you want to get the podcasts on the very same day when these videos go up on YouTube, then what you want to do is become a patron at my Patreon page at patreon.com/FreakingNarnia. For just $1 a month, you'll be able to get your podcasts on Talks from Freaking Narnia on the very same day they go up on YouTube, if that's your preferred method of listening to me. So go ahead, check it out, and maybe subscribe if you think that's something that you need. So, yep, that's about it from me today. I will see you next week with another talk from all the way in freaking Narnia. Bye guys! Or more accurate, the Department of Justice was trying to fight it on Antitrust. The Department of Justice was trying to fight the merger on but finally the courts, which is kind of